The next part that we're going to make is called a cross block, and it basically allows you to join a pin and an axle at 90 degrees. Now, I feel like I say this quite often, but this part really could be made in quite a few different ways. So just for now, I've hidden the design tray. Have a look at this part in 3D and maybe pause the video and have a little think about how you would make this, what steps you would take. Let's actually start modeling and see if we had the same ideas. I'm going to start a new part and start a sketch on the front plane, and I'm going to start with the part where the pin goes through. So I'm going to get the circle tool, I'm going to draw two concentric circles at the origin. These are for the outer size, which is 7.4 millimeters, and then the inner bore, which is that usual 4.8 that we've used in quite a few parts so far. And then I'm going to do a mid-plane extrude, and this part is actually the same width and height. So the extrude is 7.4 as well. This is the area where the pin will fit in, so I'm going to rename this as pin side. Next up, looking at the part, I'm actually going to make those little sort of ears that come off the top. To do this, I'm going to start a sketch on the plane that goes through the middle. So for me, it's the top plane. Start a sketch on there, and I'm going to go normal 2. Then I'm going to get the line tool, and I'm going to draw something like this. I'm going to start at the midpoint here and go down to the other midpoint, and then go out to the right-hand side. And then I'm going to start a new line across the top that's the same as the bottom one. Now we're going to join this open end using an arc. So you can go to the arc tool, and we're going to choose a tangent arc. Start from one of the open ends of the line and go round and finish at the other line. So it's tangent here at the top and also at the bottom. We can then use Smart Dimension to set the size. So let's start here on the very left and go out to the outside of the arc. So again, you'll need to hold down Shift to dimension to the outside of the arc. And let's set that length as 15.4 millimeters. This profile is going to make up that little ear on the top of the part. So we want to extrude this area upwards. But we don't want to extrude in the middle of the part. We want to extrude on the very edge of that circular section we've already made. So when we make the extrude feature, we can actually offset where it starts from. To do this, go to Features and just choose the standard extruded boss base. Firstly, we want to extrude in a blind direction 1 millimeter, but before you press OK, let's offset the start point. You can do this by clicking on this From drop down here, and let's change it to Offset. We can then set the offset amount. So we know that the total diameter of that circular section is 7.4, so we want to offset half of that, which is 3.7. So let's write in 3.7. Just before we press OK, we can see we're extruding in the wrong direction. We're extruding upwards when we should be extruding downwards. We can correct this just by flipping the direction by pressing the reverse direction box here on the left. And when your preview looks good, press OK to make that first ear. And I'm going to call that feature something like side ear. We can then mirror this over to the other side. So select that side ear feature, then also select the appropriate plane. For me, it was the top plane, and then press mirror. And the preview looks good, so let's press OK to mirror that ear down onto the bottom. Next up, I'm going to draw that rib in the middle that joins the two ears together. So I'm going to start a sketch on the appropriate plane. That's the one down the middle, the front plane here. And then I'm going to go to a normal 2 view. I'm going to select these 3 edges and convert them all. And then I'm just going to draw a line across the middle there to close the profile. We can then extrude that and do a mid-plane extrude. This is 1.4 millimeters wide. So hopefully you can see we're starting to build up the shape now, and I'm going to rename that feature as middle rib. Next up, I'm going to add that circular part where the axle goes through. So I'm going to start a sketch on the top plane. I'm going to get the circle tool and go normal 2, and I'm going to draw a circle that's concentric with that circular edge on the end. So I'm going to start at the midpoint of that circular edge. I'm going to go out and set the size as 5.7. I can then do a mid-plane extrude, and I'm going to set that as 7.4, so it goes exactly up to the edges that we've already made. And I'm going to call that feature something like axle body. So we're almost there now. The next thing we're going to do is cut out the cross shape for the axle. Start a sketch on the top plane, and we're going to draw and cut out that usual shape that we've done quite a few times now. So get the circle tool. Let's draw a circle that's 4.8 millimeters diameter. Then get the center rectangle. We'll draw our 2 center rectangles. We'll make the rectangles the same width, which is 1.8. And then we'll add those tangent relations to join the rectangles with the circle. When you've done both of those, we can do an extruded cut. We can go through or both, and we can choose those usual 5 sections to cut out that cross-shaped axle area. Then I'm going to rename that feature as axle cut. The next thing we need to do is cut a slot through the middle of that axle section. So start a sketch on the front plane, get the slot tool. I'm going to get a center point slot, and I'm going to draw a slot somewhere in roughly this position. We can set the position mostly using relations. So firstly, let's select the origin. Let's also select the center point of the slot, and let's make those horizontal. Then let's get the center point of the slot again, and we'll line that up with this edge above here. So you might need to add a coincident there. You might be able to use a vertical, depending exactly what you select. Then let's select the outer arc of the slot, and let's make that tangent with this lower edge here. And then finally, let's set the width of the slot as 1 millimeter, and that should fully define your sketch. If it doesn't, you might just need to add in a few more relations or dimensions to do that. We can then use this slot shape to do an extruded cut through or both, and we can call that feature axle slot. Then we've just got one final set of features to add, that rim cut around where the pin goes in. So let's start a sketch on this face, get the circle tool, and draw a circle at the center point of that hole. Let's set the size of that as 6.2 millimeters, and then just do an extruded cut blind 0.8 to cut that little rim section. I'm going to call that one pin rim, and then we can just mirror that over to the other side to finish the modeling. So select the pin rim, also select the appropriate plane. For me, this was the front plane. And then if the preview looks good, let's press OK to create that mirror. And we've now finished modeling. So actually in the end, the part wasn't too bad. We just went through it logically and built it up out of simpler features. We can now open the appearance scenes and decals tab, and we can add the appropriate color, which is a dark gray or black. We're now totally finished, so we can save this part. Let's call it crossblock 30465. In the next video, we'll take these two new parts and we'll use them to complete stage 3.